Okay, here we are.
Yep.
And
I
hopefully
made it.
you made it. I made it. Maybe Mako will make it too sometime soon. That was great. Good. That was such a fantastic session. And I see that we are already being joined by about more than 20 people. So this is fantastic. So I would like to clarify for those of you who are joining us, if you want to appear on screen with us and ask a question in the video, please hit the request. I'm not quite sure what it says, I forget, but it's a little green or orange button in the top right of the corner, and we'll bring you up on screen here. But in the meantime, I'm going to start with a question that was asked in the chat from the previous session. And Rocio, can you tell us a little bit about the cat's prey and their prey availability?
Well, the prey, as the main prey, it lives in the Andes, that is called mountain vizcacha. It looks kind of like a fat squirrel, and it's a rock specialist animal that, because it thrives on the rock, the cat has all these adaptations for living on the rock. But the Andean cat, as most cats, is an opportunistic fetus, so it will feed on anything that is available, but it will prefer this prey that also provides more biomass. So it's a good chunk of meat.
Now, I remember you mentioned that there's another cat that shares that sort of a similar ecological niche in that area. But what about the puma? What about puma Andean cat interactions? Do they overlap?
Well, for the other cat species is the Pampas cat that shares all the same distribution with the Andean cat, but they probably separate in the scale of microhabitat. We don't really know if the Pampas cat will eat as many mountain vizcachas, for instance, as the Andean cat. And pumas, as being the top predators in this area, they always have this exclusion with other small predators. We don't have any direct interactions evidence anywhere around, but if a puma is going to be around, the cats are going to be more elusive than what they already are, of course, because the biggest carnivores always try to keep the medium and low carnivores in check.
So now,
yeah, and about prey availability, I forgot to answer the part about prey availability in the Andes. That part, the Andes, because it's a very dry and rugged landscape with patches of hotspots for biodiversity, separated with bare lands, general biodiversity is low, and the number of species per location is also low. This is what makes this whole ecosystem very fragile.
Okay, so Mako, here's a question for you about your dogs again, because people love these dogs. Somebody wants to know the breed of the dog that you use, and then that's number one. And then number two, how does the dog keep track of all the sheep and goats and livestock? How do they not lose anyone? Yeah.
So, la primera parte, la gente quiere saber cuál es la raza de los perritos, y la segunda parte es cómo el perro trabaja manteniendo todo el piño más o menos unido, cómo no se le escapan los animales.
Bueno, las razas que nosotros con lo que trabajamos son dos: pastor de Anatolia y pastor de Pirineo. La camada pasada fue pastor de Pirineos, y esto, la hembra lúa, pastor de Anatolia, y el macho, pastor de Pirineo. Entonces mezclamos esas dos razas.
So what we are trying to do in Patagonia, we are trying to mix breeds of dogs that are already genetically separated for being protectors of livestock. So we are using Anatolian shepherds and
Pastor de Pirineo.
I'm having a brain. Yeah, the Pyrenees mountain dogs. These two breeds already has been trained for lots of years for guarding livestock, and we are trying to adapt them to the very Arctic weather in Patagonia. In Patagonia, you can go from below 0 temperatures to a day of very intense heat in the mid-afternoon. So the dogs has to be adapted to this kind of very crazy weather.
Sí.
The other part of the
Y
question.
lo otro, en realidad, el perro, los cachorros y cuando son adultos no se ocupan de agrupar o de arriar a el niño, a la majada. No es su trabajo ese. Su trabajo es ir acompañando. Entonces, el perro se adelanta al piño, se duerme, va mirando, camina un poco más, pero no hace el trabajo de arriar, de acompañar. Entonces, no puede evitar que se le dispersan, ¿sí? Pero el mayor trabajo, lo que vamos, bueno, ¿querés explicar eso?
So these are not shepherd dogs. Their work, their job is not to, keep the animals in check. Their job is to defend the animals from threats. So what they do is they go with the livestock group. They walk ahead the livestock. They reach a location. They sit down. They sleep. They check around. They're attentive to carnivores, but it's not their job to keep them all together. So they can separate in smaller groups.
Sí.
Go ahead, Marco.
El trabajo más importante lo hace a la noche cuando el rebaño está durmiendo y él está durmiendo con el rebaño, porque los ataques con mayor número de muertes ocurren en la noche. Entonces, lo que nosotros vamos viendo es que los productores están teniendo menos mortalidades masivas gracias al perro.
So the most important part of these dogs' job is at night. At night, they stay and sleep with the livestock, and that is the moment that carnivores usually attack. And mostly pumas could attack a group of animals and kill a lot of them together, like 20 animals together or 30 animals together. So the first answers that they're already recording in this program is an immediate reduction in the number of dead animals due to night attacks of native carnivores, just because the dog is sleeping there, and the smell of the dog and the presence of the dog kind of make the carnivores lose their encouragement to attack that particular group of livestock.
Entonces, con la forma que tiene el perro de trabajar, lo que nos vamos dando cuenta es que en el día, pequeños ataques por zorro principalmente pueden seguir ocurriendo por la dispersión de los animales, pero los ataques masivos de puma y los que le generan ese problema económico al productor se están reduciendo.
So because of the presence of these dogs and how the dogs work, what they have realized is that these massive attacks of pumas at night has reduced drastically. They still get some losses due to foxes during the day of the animals that went a little bit too far, but it is not really affecting the economy of the herders as it was doing in the past.
Great. So now I'd like to invite somebody to come up on screen to ask her question. So in 1 second, hopefully we will be joined by Camilla. Hi, Camilla.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us on screen. I believe you have a question.
Hi, Camilla.
So I also added it in the chat because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to show up. But so Andean cats are one of the many types of small cats. So what have you seen from Andean cats, in person or in terms of camera traps that makes them unique and makes them, special and worth studying?
That's a very interesting question. I never thought about that myself. What makes them unique? Well, I have to be objective and professional. I cannot keep on saying they're very cute. So it's that they live in a very, very extreme landscape. That's in itself, it's for me something very surprising because If you ever get a chance to visit to the Andes, it's such a immense landscape, and it looks so empty that to imagine a small cat living there and walking 60 kilometers in its home range, for me, it's mind-blowing. But I can also tell some ecological facts that we are suspecting, because we don't really have lots of information about their physiology or their ecology. We have a little bit, but 20 years ago, there was nothing known about this species. So we made some advancements, but not a lot. But one thing that for me, it's very impressive is that they appear to have one, mostly and very rarely, two cubs. And only two kittens in a small cat is rare. You know, Pampas Cat, Geoffroy's cat can have between 3 and 5. So this is, for me, something that it makes this species different. I think it probably also relates to how rare the species is, but it's probably their ecological strategy to be able to survive in this very dry landscape that I was telling you before. So I think this makes this species very, very unique in the small cat
All right,
world.
well, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you for
All right, let's see who else we've
and asking a
got.
question.
Somebody else joining us now to ask a question. Maybe not. Okay, let's see. Give them a minute. Teresa, are you interested in asking a question to Rocio and Mako?
Oh, sorry. Okay, so does the cats ever, are the cats a problem to like, do the cats attack the livestock and stuff?
So the question is, do the cats pose a threat to the livestock themselves?
Well, there are not, in most of the distribution, we know the cat don't really attack livestock. In North Patagonia, maybe Mako can aid me to answer this question. In North Patagonia, there are a couple of records of possible attacks to the young of goats and sheep. It's very rare anyway. It's not, foxes and pumas kill a lot more animals than the Andean cats will ever do. So it's very,
Great.
very rare.
Donald, welcome.
Thanks for
How's it going? Do you have a question for us?
Yes, I do. And you said these cats are very rare, they're very elusive, and you know a little bit about their biology. What kinds of research is needed most to provide the kind of information you would like to have to aid in your conservation efforts?
My first answer to that, if we will focus directly in conservation, it's that we need to really see how climate change will impact this species by affecting the landscape. There are a lot of information published about how climate change will affect the Andes and North Patagonia. And there is work done of how the species will be affected, but we need in situ, in field studies that will provide the real answers of how the species will be affected. We know that the glaciers are, retreating. We know that we are having less rainfall, even if it's rain or snow, all in the Andes and Patagonia. Excuse me. So this is going to be something serious that we'll have to face in the near future. Yeah, and it's hard to find funding for this because we need to do it in the whole distribution of the species. So that's a challenge.
Thank you, Donald. Now we've been getting a couple of questions from the audience about climate change and its potential impact on Andean cats and of course conservation in your area. So can you take a few minutes to just talk about what you're seeing in terms of climate change and then what AGA is doing to work within the context of climate change?
Well, we actually had a review yesterday we met to talk about this subject, because it's really a challenge to face the origins of climate change. In the Andes, we are being impacted, but nobody in the Andes is a high producer of anything that are actually increasing climate change effects. But the Andes is one of the landscapes, the Andes and North Patagonia, there are landscapes that are going to be highly impacted because they already are dry, and they're going to be drier, and because of the increasing temperature, the line of vegetation can go up, and we have no idea what that will do to the species. We are planning, first, I don't think a lot of people know this, but we are a grassroots organization. We are a very small organization with only 2 paid positions. And this is a huge challenge because most of the people that are in part of the Andean Cat Alliance, highly committed people that work to preserve these species, they are locals, but they have a day job that they have to attend to. So the time that we can spend in the field is not all that we want. So we are working in finding alliances with other organizations, that are trying to do climate change studies in the Andes. The thing that we are afraid of is that while we gather this information, we are afraid we're going to lose the wetlands. The wetlands are the key spots for biodiversity in the Andes. So you have a wetland, a rocky cliff, and 80% of the biodiversity on that region is going to be located there. So this is very, very important in this dry landscape. So we are trying to find approaches to work together that in a way that while doing research, we can work with communities to save the most important wetlands in that particular area, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and
it's a work in progress.
You mentioned that you're a very small, lean team. So that goes to a question that I had, but also a mutual friend of ours had. So Rachel asked in the chat, what are your greatest financial needs for 2021? So looking ahead, what does AGA have in terms of funding gaps or also just challenges that you're hoping to accomplish next year?
It's funny because watching at the other presentations of the other partners, I again felt as if I was at Expo, because we are having the same kind of problems this year. It's really hard to fund overhead, and we are in dire need to increase our paid personnel, paying a part-time to help support a person like Mako in the field, for instance. She's 24/7 dedicated to the dogs, and she's living only on a part-time salary. She needs a full-time salary. And, being able to find a particular person that will aid us, writing grants or coordinating field work for doing research and finding funds for doing that research. It's very challenging to keep on growing or sustain all this growth that we had on the past 5 years with almost no funds for overhead. And that is really hard to find. Research is very hard to find at this particular moment too. It's been a challenge to find funds for pure research. And with a species like this that we don't know a lot of the answers, we still need research to be able to know what to do.
So what I'm hearing is that you're in need of funding for your core costs, like salaries, so people like Mako can continue being out in the field to protect the cat. And then you also need funding for research to fill those knowledge gaps. So on your behalf, I'll give you a plug. Everybody watching, AGA is such a great organization. And as you can tell, these 2 women are powerful, smart people that are fully committed to this cat. And so if you make a donation to WCN for AGA, remember 100% of that will go directly to AGA's work. WCN will not take any cut from that. So you can be assured that your money is going to really important things. I think just following on that, Rocio, I think you're probably up against an additional challenge that the Andean cat is not very well known globally. And it's not a well-known or highly charismatic species like the lions and the cheetahs and snow leopards. So how do you sort of go that extra mile to raise awareness that the species even exists, both locally and globally?
I think that the key answer to that question is working in collaboration and having ambassadors. And every single person that has been, that got to know the Andean cat became an ambassador of the cat. And it's not our merit as human, it's the merits of the cats because of where they live. And positive collaborations, and like we have with other partners in WCN, and WCN role as, putting us on stage, giving this opportunity for the Andean cat, to interact with people, to get, we get to spread the word. It's a challenge anyway, but we have seen a ton of difference in 20 years. As I told you, 20 years ago, there was only 2 pictures of Andean cats, and I think that 10 skins in museums. That was all that was known about the species. And now we know where they are, what they eat, what the genetic structure is, what the habits of the species are, what the main threats are, how to face those threats. And we got the species to be in the highest currency bill in Bolivia, for instance, and in a coin in Peru. In Chile, they are doing a whole action plan for protecting the species in the national parks they have. In Argentina, we are a little bit back, but with efforts like the one Mako is doing, she got the whole Andean cat and the whole carnivores in Patagonia on her back. And I think the key here is the people, the power of the people for spreading the word, And you can see the difference. In 20 years, I've been working with this cat for 18 of those 20. I'm telling you, I could see the difference. And the cat, now a lot of people know about the cat. Mm-hmm. So I think it's starting to roll, It takes time, and they're never going to be the same amount of charisma than a lion or a snow leopard. But
absolutely.
We just need to
and
keep
hopefully
spreading
events
the
like
word.
This will help as well. Okay, so I'm going to bring up somebody who has requested to come on screen to see if we can get a live question going. So let's give it a second for the person to join us. Maybe not. Let's try this person. Okay, doesn't look like it. Maybe they're going to join us in a second. But in the meantime, there's a question from Jorgelina that I want to get to. Where did it go? So first of all, she says that Aga is very special, and I think we all agree there. Oh, sorry, Jorgelina, I lost your question. I think it was about, okay, here it is. Protecting livestock from top predators such as pumas. You can reduce poisoning and retaliatory killing, thus saving Andean cats. So she's asking, how do you measure impact? So that's the first question. I think the question is about measuring progress towards various indicators of success. So I'll let you go with that one first.
So I'm not really understanding the whole question. It's about the guard dog program,
let me see here.
Or it's about all the programs in AGA? I'm not.
It sounds like it's. Yeah, it sounds like it's specifically about the coexistence program and the guard dog program. So.
Okay, Mako. So the question is mainly cómo pensamos medir el éxito del programa, digamos, a través de la reducción de cacería de carnívoros y de envenenamientos.
Nosotros, al entregar el perro, tenemos el compromiso informal con el productor de no utilizar veneno, de no utilizar trampas, pero además como indicadores lo que tenemos es la reducción de tiempo de los productores en perseguir a los carnívoros. Eso lo vamos midiendo en los monitoreos a través de las entrevistas que le vamos haciendo. Entonces, lo que nosotros vamos evaluando con el monitoreo es el éxito del perro, por un lado, pero también cómo el productor va cambiando su forma de ver al depredador, ¿no? A través de la menor cantidad de caza que él ejecuta, que eso nos ha pasado, productores que han cazado pumas y ya no cazan, y la reducción del tiempo en perseguir a los depredadores.
So the answer is, I think that before getting into the answer, we have to realize that this program does not really mean that Mako delivers a dog and she forgets about them. She keeps monitoring how the dog progresses for at least 12 months after this. And this is a very important part of the process, because during that process, she will realize how the dog is behaving, and if there is any kind of unwanted behavior, it can be corrected at that point. And it also allows her to monitor the interaction with the herder. That is also very important, because if the herder is not doing his part, the dog is not going to work properly. So while doing this monitoring that goes until the dog is 12 months old, is monthly, and then it's every 2 months.
Monitoreo.
I don't remember, 2 or 3 months. When she keeps...
Cuando ya pasa los 12 meses, después mantenemos contactos más esporádicos, pero el compromiso es seguirlo sistemáticamente hasta los 12 meses.
Okay. So they follow how the evolution of the dog and the herder is for 12 months. The herder makes an informal commitment of not hunting more carnivores, and they express it freely. If they hunt, they tell you, and if they stop hunting, they tell you too. So they already had seen some herders that they told them they reduced the hunting of carnivores because of the dog's presence. And they also keep on this very specific monitoring of how the interaction progresses. This is the second year of this program in North Patagonia. So this is still on diapers. I think that they are doing a great work planning ahead on how to monitor this with interviews and with this permanent interaction with the herders, you know.
So along these lines, talking about coexistence and using these guard dogs to protect livestock and ultimately benefit the local communities there, there's so many parallels with other coexistence programs that are focused on other species, even on other continents, right? So I used to do work with lions in Kenya, and it was very similar in terms of finding these mechanisms to work with local communities, protect their livestock so that there's no need for retaliation. Now, WCN is all about a network, so you are part of this family of conservationists. So how do you work with other conservationists that are dealing with similar but different issues all over the world?
Well, we keep on learning from each other. You know, it's like what we said in the presentation of last year. We're not really inventing anything new. We are adapting what other people like Lori Marker and Rebecca Klein have done in Africa. We're adapting it to our realities. What we found when this project started in Chile is that we cannot just bring one of these breeds and use them as how they are in our location. Because of these extreme weather conditions, that with very cold winters and very hot summers, you need dogs that are crossbreed. You have to adapt them to this particular kind of landscape and weather. But at the beginning of the program, we were in very close contact with Lori mainly, and Mako in Argentina is also working in collaboration with other national programs that has been doing the same kind of thing in other parts of the country too. So collaboration is the key for anything that has to do with conservation.
We're sort of out of time, so I'll wrap things up with just one last question, and I'd love to hear from both of you. Is, you know, usually this Wildlife Expo is such an opportunity for us all to come together and get that sort of bolt of energy that motivates us throughout the rest of the year. How do you, both of you, how do you keep hope when the threats facing the Andean cats are so big, the need is so great, and there's always such a lack of time and resources? So I'm curious, sort of, what keeps you motivated and what keeps you inspired and having that sense of hope?
¿Respondes vos primero? ¿Qué te mantiene motivada y qué te da sensación de esperanza cuando siguen estando las amenazas y siguen perdiendo animales? ¿Cuál es tu motivación para seguir?
Cuando voy al campo y estoy en contacto con la naturaleza y observo las maravillas de la naturaleza, eso me inspira a seguir. Digo, no podemos perder esto, hay que seguir. Y por otro lado, como decía en el video, cuando veo que hay gente del campo que tiene una cultura totalmente diferente y que sufre muchísimo con los problemas ambientales que estamos sufriendo, que son a los que más afecta, creo que algo hay que hacer para colaborar con eso. O sea, ellos matan depredadores porque tienen un problema y hay que ayudar en ese problema.
So her answer is double. First, when she goes to the field and she watches all the marvels that nature provides, and she feels that gives her hope and she feels like a mission to save that. We cannot lose that, she said. We need to protect it. And the other part that I think that she said is very, very important, that when she realized that local people have real needs and that they are being affected by these issues, and we can do something to help them. A herder will kill a puma not because he wants to, it's because he's really suffering a loss because of that puma. So if we can do something to help, that's also part of what she feels is like a mission. We need to be able to help them in that part. For me, after 7 months of being in my office with my cat, my real cat that is sleeping right next to us right now, sometimes I felt it was hard. It's hard to keep up hope. But then I received an email from the park rangers. You know, I put some camera traps in December in an area, and I trained the park rangers. And because I couldn't go back in May to pick up those cameras, these park rangers were very excited because they got to have the cameras for a longer time, and they got to select by themselves the places to put the cameras. And they put the cameras in new locations, and they got their own pictures of Andean cats. And they were so excited. They were feeling really, really part of conservation, as they never did before, because they were just, you know, attending tourists. And now they are doing real active conservation. And those kind of tiny changes in attitudes that I see in people, for me, are very, very inspiring. Those park rangers, I couldn't get enough of, you know, congratulating them through WhatsApp. You know, I send an email to their boss congratulating the park rangers, because I think that's the true change, when we can make people work for conservation. You know, when we, under this pandemic scenario, when we were able to contact the communities that we work with in the gold mine, in the Green Gold program, in the Catcraft program, these communities are completely forgotten by our government. And being able to be in contact with them and provide them basic items they needed, they were so thankful. You know, that make us realize that our work goes from conservation and beyond. You know, it's working for hope itself, for people and for love, basically. So that's what comes back when you feel hopeless, and that, you know, it's hard to face some answers, but it's still so many good things are out there.
Thank you.
For us all.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Thank you. That's fantastic. You two are really inspiring me. I need to come down and visit, I think, and go see those. So
Whenever you
unfortunately,
want,
we're out
Paul.
of time, but I think we got through most of the questions. I thought this was really, really engaging. Rocio or Mako, do you have any final closing remarks? Otherwise, we'll wrap up.
¿Qué dijo?
Mako, ¿quieres decir algo de
Les
despedida, de
agradezco,
cierre?
yo
Estamos
voy
cerrando.
leyendo un poco lo que van poniendo. Les agradezco el tiempo dedicado a escucharnos. Les agradezco que se interesen por lo que nosotros hacemos, por nuestros lugares. Gracias, Paul, por intervenir. Y bueno, como dije en el video, también les agradezco porque parte de que nosotros podamos seguir haciendo este trabajo, que es nuestra vida, lo debemos a estas cosas. Así que gracias por la oportunidad y por brindar su tiempo, por interesarse.
So Mako says, thank you for all of you that are watching, for sharing, giving us your time, for listening to us, for interesting for our places, and for interesting and that we are able to do what we are doing because mostly of you and your support. And this is our life. This is what gives us a sense of existence. So thank you for being there. I'm not going to add anything to that. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Please come to our booth if you have any questions. You all know I love questions, and I'm going to do my best to answer all of your requests. And thank you very much, Paul, for moderating, and to all this wonderful WCN extended family that give us this opportunity for being.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rocio,
to
Mako. Go speak to them more in the booth, and then stay tuned for more sessions coming up in about 10 minutes. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day. Bye.
Bye.